All right, back again. This time we're going to look at two more ideas in Aristotle, and that's the distinction between potentiality and actuality. And again, it's going to be similar to the matter-form problem. So potentiality is sort of like matter, whereas actuality is sort of like form. And what this means is that every single thing has a potential that can be actualized. And so there is the distinction. Remember we talked a little about acorns and squirrels and how one thing actualizes its potentiality. Let's go through that again. Aristotle has a couple of terms. He calls one is telos. Telos is what the actuality of all things are. Everything is actually fitting in its grand particular place. And that's the idea of a teleological universe, where all things are organized in a beautiful structured universe. He also thinks of telos as the idea that all things fulfill a natural function. The function of all is that they work within their particular domains. But within telos, we also have individual components, when each of those individual components of the total universe also have their own actuality and their own potentiality. So we have telos, and the word for individual telos is entelechy. E-N-T-E-L-E-C-H-Y. Entelechy is the telos of a unit. So for example, what is the entelechy of an acorn? The entelechy of an acorn is to grow into an oak tree. What is the entelechy of a squirrel? Well, the entelechy of a squirrel is to eat an acorn. Well, that's not good for the acorn. So in other words, that does not help the acorn fulfill its actuality as an acorn, but it does help the squirrel fulfill its actuality as part of the squirrel, because when a squirrel eats an acorn, the squirrel fulfills the function, the acorn fulfills the function of the squirrel. So this actuality, potentiality, similar to form and matter. Each thing has its unique potentiality that should be actualized. So for example, a squirrel, to fulfill its potentiality, to actualize its potentiality, should be a very successful squirrel. It should be very squirrely and run around like a squirrel and eat acorns. But an acorn, to fulfill or actualize its unique potentiality, to actualize its acornness, it should grow into an oak tree. And for a dog to eat a squirrel, that's a dog being a good dog, which means it's actualizing its dogness, even though the squirrel, once eaten by the dog, cannot actualize its squirrelness anymore. So the squirrel no longer fulfills its squirrel entelechy, but instead the squirrel is fulfilling the dog's entelechy, because the dog eats it, and the potential of the squirrel is not to now become a squirrel, but the potential of the squirrel is actualized as it becomes dog. So it's hard to describe this because I'm sort of fumbling around here, but the idea is that every single individual unit in the universe, everything you see, has its own particular function, and all things work together in a grand, beautiful, well-functioning universe. And of course, what do you think is the actualized thing that actualizes all things, the ultimate unmoved mover again, that one single thing that keeps all things in order? Again, that's God. But the Aristotelian God is not at all like the Christian God or the Jewish God or the Muslim God. The Aristotelian God is really a God that thinks only about itself, because it's not interested in the particulars. It's a God which is pure actualization. It can never change. It's done. So it's a complete and total actualized entity, and that's called God. So you're going to have, first we have matter and form is how matter actualizes itself, and then you have potentiality and actuality, and so potentiality is one of the things that something has, and when it actualizes its unique potentiality, it does what it's supposed to do. So one more time, for the acorn to actualize its acorn potential, it must become an oak tree. If an acorn is eaten by a squirrel, it now actualizes the squirrel's potential by becoming squirrel. And that ends the actuality, potentiality part of Aristotle. We'll move to the next thing in just a second. Let me turn off the